Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to this evening's event. My name is Will Barbie, and I'm the president of the William F. Buckley Jr. program here at Yale. I thank all of you for coming out to this evening's event with Prime Minister Johnson, entitled The U.S. and UK, a special alliance that must work together to save the West. Before I introduce our guest, I'd like to say a few words about the Buckley program. The William F. Buckley Jr. program is the flagship program of the Buckley Institute, an organization dedicated to promoting intellectual diversity and freedom of speech at Yale. We have hosted lectures, dinner seminars, firing line debates, and an annual conference every year since 2011. Our over 850 Buckley student fellows hold a wide range of political beliefs, but they all stand united against the formation of a liberal-only echo chamber on campus. By providing Yale students with a forum to engage meaningfully with serious, conservative thought, the Buckley program has become an institution on Yale's campus and a symbol for a more open and representative political atmosphere. Especially at a university where the mission is the cultivation and creation of new knowledge, Buckley Fellows believe that all perspectives must be heard and examined in good faith. You can learn more about the program and how to become a fellow on our website at buckleyinstitute.com. I also want to emphasize the Buckley program's commitment to freedom of speech. Disruption of an event is not consistent with Yale's policies on free expression as outlined in the Woodward Report. In addition, our event this evening is being recorded. I would ask that each of you respect the right of our speakers to be heard and the right of your fellow audience members to listen to the event. Thank you for joining us in upholding the value of free speech. Lastly, I want to extend my sincere thanks to Carol Brown and the Young Americas Foundation's Irving Brown Lecture Series, without whom this event would not have been possible. And it is now my great honor to introduce our guest for this evening. The Right Honorable Boris Johnson is a British politician who served as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and as the leader of the Conservative Party from 2019 to 2022. Prior to holding this inestimable position, he served as the UK Foreign Secretary, the Mayor of London, and as a Member of Parliament for the constituencies of Henley and, more recently, Uxbridge and South Ruislip. His ascension to Prime Minister in 2019 was accompanied by the extraordinary election victory of the Tories, who won their biggest majority in the House of Commons since 1987. Mr. Johnson's tenure as Prime Minister was defined by the accomplishment of critical developments for Britain and her citizens. He delivered Brexit to the nation following the referendum in 2016. He developed a domestic agenda centered around infrastructural, educational, and technological reform. He led the nation through the crisis of COVID-19, and he championed the cause of Ukraine in their fight against Russia. Since leaving office, Mr. Johnson has returned to his roots as a journalist, writing a column for the Daily Mail. Mr. Johnson has served as a central figure in the realignment of British politics, and his legacy continues to this day. Please join me in welcoming Boris Johnson to the Buckley Institute and to Yale.
Thank you, Will. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can we go here? Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you. Can you hear me, everybody? Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Will, for that lovely introduction, which I could just about hear from behind there. And thank you to everybody who's invited me here. Carol Brown, so there you are, for supporting this wonderful lecture. The Buckley Institute and the Young Americas Foundation. Thank you and thank you to Yale University as well. I mean, you have an amazing record here at Yale for distinguished alumni from William Howard Taft to Hillary Clinton. A lot of my favorite, J.D. Vance was here, and it's a home of so much intellectual brilliance and scientific breakthroughs. So many, in fact, that when I was at a rival university, in England, we used to acknowledge your brilliance in a song, which went, I will give it to you. We clever young students at Oxford have been made to look foolish by Yale, where they've learned to make love to a hedgehog by shaving the spines off its tail, and so on. And it's better if you're drunk. But that was, so I was always an admirer of Yale, and we need Yaley, if I can use that word. We need the Yaley inspiration and genius now, because the Western liberal intelligentsia, which I think we're all basically associate members, has lost its marbles, and otherwise intelligent people are wandering in a fog of confusion about the difference between freedom and repression, and the difference between right and wrong. And this week was the anniversary of October the 7th, and it was appalling to see crowds of Westerners, including students, actually demonstrating, not against Hamas, which committed those massacres 2 years ago, but demonstrating against, by the way, if anybody wants to protest against what I'm saying, get your protests over now. But these people were protesting against Israel's legitimate attempts to stop such a massacre happening again, venting hatred of Jewish people when for 730 days Hamas has been able to end the conflict by releasing all the remaining hostages and the bodies of the dead, as we hope they are about to do finally now. And these crowds proclaiming their hatred of the only democracy in the Middle East, when Hamas is an Islamo-fascist death cult that has for years been armed and funded by Iran to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Iran even helped them dig all those tunnels under Gaza. And crowds of these people screaming support for Iran's puppet, Hamas, when Iran is in long-term strategic alliance with Putin's Russia, that is using North Korean manpower and massive Chinese economic and technical support to try to obliterate another democracy in Ukraine. And as we meet tonight, I'm afraid Putin is using Iranian-designed drones and North Korean troops and Chinese cash to kill innocent Ukrainians in their homes and to bomb their flats and their apartments. At the moment, we've got Russian jets over Estonia, Russian drones over Poland, European airports being shut by Russian interference. And the world can see that Putin is testing his own proposition that NATO is a paper tiger. And I think, after 3.5 years of conflict in Ukraine, we are doing nothing like enough to prove Putin wrong. And we still won't give the decisive help that the Ukrainians need. Unfreezing that $200 billion of cash that's sitting in a Belgian bank account, Putin's cash that should be going to Ukraine, giving the Ukrainians the permissions to use the weapons they already have so that they can stop Putin's odious raids into their territory. Why aren't we doing this? Because of a fundamental infirmity of purpose. We won't say explicitly that we want Ukraine to win, and that we want Putin to lose. Folks, can I ask you tonight, here in Yale, do you want Ukraine to win? Yes. Have a yes, that's right. Good. But, and I'm glad that at least the overwhelming majority of people here do, and probably everybody. But we aren't hearing that clearly enough from either London or from Washington, I'm afraid. And that lack of clarity is a military disaster, because you can't win a war if you won't identify your war aims. You don't know your war aims. And it's a geopolitical disaster because the whole world can smell this lack of Western resolve and this lack of self-belief. And we are failing to champion our core values of liberty and democracy. And we're forgetting, when we demonstrate against Hamas, we're forgetting the stark difference between our system and their systems. If you listen to the liberal media, you would think that the temporary disappearance of one late-night TV comic, I think he was called Jimmy Kimmel, I never heard of him before. I hadn't heard of him, he disappeared, then reappeared. You'd think that brief hiccup in his career was somehow commensurate with events in Putin's Russia. Listening to what they say. That is frankly an insult to the sufferings of journalists and comedians in Russia itself, to the sufferings of everybody involved in the media in Russia, where Putin's opponents are shot or poisoned or sent to gulags, where dozens, literally dozens and dozens of journalists are jailed every year just for doing their job, and where it is actually a crime to insult authority, and where there is no free media at all. Imagine if it was a crime to insult authority in the UK. I mean, how would the Metropolitan Police cope with the insults that they hear every day directed at my good person? It's ridiculous, but that is the law in Russia. Imagine if you went on Russian TV and told jokes about the billions that Putin has stolen or the people that he has liquidated. How do you think that would go? Do you think you'd be back on TV the following night? I don't think so. We have to remember the difference between our side and their side. And if you listen to the moaning of the liberal media about Donald Trump's sometimes boisterous treatment of journalists, I've got to look. I've got to put it out there, and this gets me into terrible trouble. But I'm one of those very, very few European politicians who's willing to say that I like Donald Trump, and there are things that he does that I find positive. Okay, and you say that in Europe, you haven't lynched me yet, but you say that in Europe, you will get the most hysterical reaction. But you would think by listening to the liberal media around the world that Trump's gentle ribbing, irreverent treatment of the media was on a par with what the authorities are doing in Iran or China or North Korea. I mean, literally, where thousands of people are put in jail just for saying what they honestly think and believe, or reporting the facts, reporting the truth, and where there is no free media at all. There are many, many countries around the world where there is no free media at all. And we continue to have this narcissistic argument about what's going on in the West, in a kind of stupor of whataboutery that is sapping the outrage we should properly feel about Ukraine. Because, look, if Ukraine goes down, then it's bad news for the whole of the periphery of the former Soviet Union. It's bad news for Moldova, for the Balts, for much of Eastern Europe, and actually it's bad news for Taiwan and the South China Seas as well. Very, very bad news, because the read across is obvious. And let me tell you this, my dear beloved Americans who've done so much to help Ukraine and to save the world over the last couple of centuries. If Ukraine goes down, every country in the West, including this one, will be spending far more on defense over the next 40 years. Your kids will be spending far more on the defense of Europe and the rest of the world, and less on roads and healthcare and education and all the other priorities. And that's why it is so infuriating to listen to the debate on both sides of the Atlantic, because a virus of insanity seems to have infected some of my beloved fellow conservatives who think that, if I listen to them when they interview him, that Putin is some kind of all-round stand-up guy, hot dang, Christian defender of family values. And I mean, this guy's a tyrannical, kleptocratic thug. And things are no better in Germany, by the way, where Merz, Chancellor Merz, is losing ground rapidly to Alternative for Deutschland, who are tepid, to say the least, about continuing German support for Ukraine. France, President Macron, he won't call. He's in a real. He won't call an election. He's got through 4 prime ministers, which is more than we've got through in Britain. I mean, it's unbelievable. Because he's terrified. It's one of the few areas there the French are actually overtaking us. Why won't he call an election, Macron? Because he's absolutely terrified of losing to the insurgent Marine Le Pen and the Front National, And that would be a disaster for us all, I've got to tell you, because Marine Le Pen thinks that Putin is a defender of Western civilization. And she does, and she's even taken, her party's taken money. Her party's taken money from Putin. And look, I'm sad to say that even in Britain, in my own party, as some of you may know, because that's why I'm here, has temporarily vacated the government. And that after I vacated number 10, long after I vacated number 10, that was the origin of the problem. Anyway, the leader of the other party, which I won't mention, Renew or Regurgitate or something, is a long way ahead in the polls right now, and it's led by, listen to me, it's led by a guy who has said repeatedly and continues to say that NATO was responsible for causing the war in Ukraine. And that is a damnable, damnable lie. And it's terrifying that people can say it and believe it. So it's time for the US and the UK to come together and to stand up for freedom, as we have done so often in the last 200 years. And I believe that this transatlantic alliance has been the great geopolitical fact of the last couple of hundred years, and we have pulled the world together. I mean, admittedly, largely thanks to America, but we have pulled the world. It's absolutely true that the values we incarnate have pulled the world's chestnuts out of the fire in the First World War, the Second World War, the Cold War, and now we're going to have to do it again. Now, it was only 9 months ago that I had the honor of attending President Trump's inauguration. I was absolutely thrilled. The day began with a divine service in St. John's Episcopal Church in Lafayette Square, which I was just discussing with Will. And as the liturgy unrolled, I felt this extraordinary cultural and historic continuity between the UK and the US, because we sang hymns and said prayers that I have known all my life. Though for some reason you got some of the words wrong. You guys, for some reason, sing, "My country 'tis of thee," instead of the correct words, which, of course, as we all know, are "God save our gracious King." Anyway, you decided. I thought that you decided to change it, and that's all right. But the continuity was amazing. And I looked. I was in this pew, right, somewhere halfway down the church, and literally on my right, in ascending order, there was Tim Cook of Apple, net worth $2.5 billion, Mark Zuckerberg of Meta, worth $237 billion, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, $250 billion. I mean, these figures may be out of date. There was Elon Musk, who was then the chief buddy and the Doge of Doge, who was worth, I think, $437 billion. Now I see it's gone up to $500 billion. And then there was me, slightly bringing down the average, because of my career so far in public service and journalism and writing and things. And I looked at these guys, at these titans of American capitalism. I thought, what is it about America, about your country, that it gives birth to these prodigies? Because there's simply no other country that can produce wealth creators in the way that America does. And I know people say, well, there are some rich people. What about Putin himself? What about other oligarchs? What about some of these Chinese guys? What about the Saudi princes? It's all rubbish. There's no comparison. No comparison. It's not just a financial success. It's a moral point. These people in the church with me, they didn't get rich from state contracts, right? They didn't benefit from Chinese-style government investment, or they weren't given lucrative oil wells to harvest. Certainly not that was not how their career started. These guys were entrepreneurs. Like everybody else, they decided to see if they could come up with something to make the consumer happy, build a better mousetrap. And they ended up changing the way, literally every one of us probably in this room, the way we shop, the way we travel, the way we move around, the way we communicate, the way we think. These guys did it by their own private enterprise, with all its risks and its humiliations. And it's a very risky thing. And I was sitting next to Mrs. Bezos. I think she was Mrs. Bezos, yeah, but anyway, I was keeping my eye firmly fixed on her lovely face, as you can imagine, and we had a good chat. I did, and then and we were talking about the early days of Amazon, and Jeff Bezos joined in, and Jeff told me about what it was like. When it began, he was literally sitting on the floor of his garage, packing the books himself, and he told me that the whole enterprise almost died on day one because the bookshops would not do single book deliveries, and they wouldn't send out one book at a time, and all of his customers only wanted one book, right? And so he came up with a brilliant idea. Do you know what it was? Can you guess what it was with your $250 billion Yale brains? Do you know what he came up with? What he did? Do you know? He placed the order for the book that the customer wanted with the bookshop, and then he bulked out that order with titles that were completely out of print, that he knew were out of print. You know, how to knit with dog hair, the gangster rap coloring book, the big book of lesbian horse stories, cheese problem solved, does God speak through cats? All of these you can't find anymore. And so the bookstore would get this order from Amazon for 5 books, and finding that the 4 others were unavailable, they would send the only one they had, which was, of course, the only one the customer wanted. Genius! Bingo! That was how Jeff solved his problem, and Amazon never looked back. And we Brits, we Europeans, I think we really have to marvel and ask ourselves, how come America not only come up with ideas like that, but also, how do you come you can pursue them, build on them, turn them literally into world civilization-changing businesses? And I think there are many things that come together. I think we've got to accept, we Europeans, that here in America, you just have an extra sense of boundless possibility, a sort of freedom to channel your natural, prodigious human energies wherever you want. And of course, it's all bound up with your wonderful constitution, amendments to protect the citizen against the coercion of the state and so on. And it's part of the whole history of this country that was literally conceived in liberty. And next year, actually, it will be 250 years since you decided to, have I got that right? It is 250 years. Next year, yes, you're following this. 250 years since you decided to change the words of God Save the King, and you threw our tea into Boston Harbor because, yeah, okay, I'll take it later. I mean, I would have done the same. I would have done, because you did not want to be ruled from overseas by bodies that you did not control. And, right? And you did not want your laws to be made by people that you did not elect, right? Yes. And my friends, I totally understand those feelings. One of the reasons I was so determined to deliver Brexit was because I wanted to bring that spirit of freedom back home. And I have to tell you that Brexit is a wonderful thing, and you won't read this in the mushy-minded liberal media, but it was and is the right thing to do, because it's about democratic freedom. The EU system is a huge experiment in trying to create a single country out of 27 countries with a single currency and a single vast and growing body of law over which individual countries and governments have limited influence in its creation, and which can be passed by a majority vote. And when that law is passed in Brussels, there is nothing any individual country can do to change or repeal it. And no one can make a difference. No MP, no cabinet minister, no parliament, no voter. There's nothing that any of you could, were you to be living in the EU, there's nothing that any of you could do as an EU voter to remove from office the people who make the law. And that is, in my view, profoundly undemocratic. And it would be completely alien, frankly, to you here in America, where America doesn't sign up to any international court at all, right? The US guards its sovereignty so zealously that it does not sign up to UN conventions on the law of the sea, or even the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. You know, you're strict. You believe in democratic freedom, because that was the spirit of your founding fathers, all of whom came, of course, from England. And I wanted, delivering Brexit, to bring that spirit back home. And when I was in government, it worked. We took back control of our laws, our borders, our money. And you won't read this in the New York Times or the Washington Post, you won't hear it on the BBC. But Brexit paid off almost immediately, because if you remember, we got the whole thing through finally at the height of the COVID pandemic, and it was a very miserable time. But finally, we had some vaccines coming through. And, Pfizer, Moderna, whatever, AstraZeneca, and so on. I think there was a couple more. And we were, thanks to Brexit, we were out of the single market institutions. We were out of this thing called the European Medicines Agency. We were able to give approval to those vaccines about 5 weeks before the other EU countries, the EU 27 countries. And that mattered deeply to our population, where a lot of very frightened and elderly people were dying. Sometimes there were 1,000 a day at that very period. And because we were able to roll out those vaccines faster, we were able to vaccinate our population faster than any of the EU 27 countries. Much, much faster. I'll give you the figures. You won't hear, just because you won't hear it on the BBC. By March 2021, the UK had vaccinated 45% of the entire adult population and about 100% of everybody over 80 and all the vulnerable people. The comparable figure in the EU was about 10%, right? And they really, really felt it. And they complained about it. But Brexit saved lives in those months. And it also helped our economic recovery, of course, because having vaccinated our population so fast, we were able to come out of all the lockdown measures earlier than any comparator country, and we had a faster economic rebound. And that was fastest in the G7. That was an incredible experience for me, because it taught me the value in a globalized economy of being free to do your own thing. And I think that the future for the UK now, and indeed for the US, is to campaign for economic and political freedom across the Atlantic. You think about this area, broadly speaking, the NATO area, United States, Canada, UK, Europe. It's the largest concentration of wealth and talent. It's by far the biggest and most lucrative market anywhere in the world. It is, in the words of Edward Gibbon, the fairest parts of the earth and the most civilized portions of mankind. N'est-ce pas? It is, absolutely. And I think it's time that we did more to liberate these markets and allow them to grow, not by top-down regulation, not with more laws or doomed attempts at harmonization or standardization, but with more freedom to choose for individuals and for consumers and citizens. And that means mutual recognition of high standards that already exist in all of these countries. We should break down the pointless barriers to trade that have been devised, in my view, purely to serve the interests of special interest groups and not the public. It should be a rule of thumb that if something can be safely put on the market here in the United States, it can be put on the market for sale in the UK too, right? And vice versa. Why not? And it's insane. Growers of British cauliflowers currently have only one port in the United States where they can land their goods, in Miami. Why is that? I'd be frankly amazed if a British cauliflower was the most dangerous thing to make landfall in Miami. But it's indefensible. Every British sofa or cushion that gets imported to America has to be flame tested. Every shower tray has to be tested to see whether it conforms to some arcane American standard. Look, our shower trays, I speak from experience, our British shower trays are no more slippery than your shower trays. And it is demented, it is absolutely demented that we in Britain refuse to eat your delicious beef or chicken that is reared here in America. We do. I look at this audience. You seem in the pink of health to me. You all look incredibly fit and well. And I challenge those moaning European scientists to explain their reservations about food in this country. Is there anything wrong with beef or chicken here and here? Do you like it? Is it poisonous? It's fantastic. It's rubbish, isn't it? They're talking complete rubbish. And I think that we should bring our great freedom-loving democracies closer together with that simple principle of mutual recognition. And if we create this giant transatlantic zone, which is I think what we should do, that is how we will stand up together. That's how people are worried about the rise of China. We will knock China out of the park that way. And that is the way to stand up to the autocracies. Above all, we mustn't forget the difference between the two sides, because and that's why I think we should do more together. Because sometimes people seem completely blind to the reality of the causes they are supporting. I mean, I was just thinking back to those kids in my country and here in America as well, and not just kids, but everybody out there with their sort of black and white dishcloth, kefir, Arafat stuff, supporting Hamas. I mean, do they really know do they know at all what Hamas is? Have you talked to them about what I'll tell you a sad story. In 2005, as you know, Israel fulfilled its obligations under the peace accords and pulled every settler out of Gaza, sometimes dragging them out by the hair. But a lot of money then came into the Gaza Strip, and entrepreneurs started to build recreational facilities, cafes, places for the kids to ride horses. Then around 2008, someone came up with a wonderful idea for what they called Crazy Wave Park. And it was going to be one of those places where, I love them, where you go down a complicated alimentary system of tubular slides and then plop into the pool. I don't know if you've done it, it's great. Anyway, it was a happy, splashy, fun-filled place where people in Gaza could come and forget their cares. But of course, it involved such unmentionable practices as women going around without their heads covered and women smoking in public in the cafes. In fact, Crazy Wave Park involved men and women wearing nothing but bathing costumes and being in reasonable proximity with one another. And Hamas totally freaked out. Totally freaked out. And in 2010, a group of about 40 men in balaclavas came from the government of Gaza in the night and burned the place down. And there's been nothing like it since, no amenity like it since in Gaza. And yet that is the government that is apparently inspiring the support of our friends out there on the street. And I've got to tell you, my friend, I think they're out of their tiny minds. I think they're out of their tiny minds. And in destroying that attraction, Hamas have perfectly demonstrated, to my mind, how much they hate freedom, how much they hate fun, and how much they hate our values. And I think they're absolutely wrong, because most people in the world want the choice, don't we? They want to be able to take their families onto a waterside and get humiliated, as I did once, getting stuck in one of those tubes in Horsham municipal swimming pools. They want to do that. It's fun. They're pro-Crazy Wave Park and anti-Hamas, right? That's certainly if you had to ask what my political position is, that's it. And that's the winning side. That's the winning side. Our side is going to win. Because the happiest, strongest, and most successful societies are the places where you can live in freedom, provided you do no harm to others. And that's why free societies are the creative societies. Get into any lift from Bogota to Bulawayo and listen to the music, the muzak. And it's Western music. It's almost actually always British music, I'm proud to say. In the supermarkets of the world, they're not listening to Russian techno-funk or North Korean military dirges. They're listening to music that comes from my country or your country or somewhere in the West. Of course they are. And the people of the earth are watching Hollywood movies, not movies made in China. And the breakthrough drugs of the world that are going to cure generations in the future are being made in Western labs. And the clinching argument, the children of the powerful classes in the autocratic countries are not being sent to university in Moscow or Pyongyang or Tehran or Beijing. They're being sent to the great universities of the West. Because provided you stick to the dress code and you know the university song, whatever it is, and you're polite, you're respectful to your teachers, as I'm sure you are, you can say and think what you like, can't you? You should be able to anyway. I hope you do. Because these, and the difference between our universities and those universities around the world is absolutely fundamental, because our universities are places, Oxford, Yale, these are places of intellectual and academic freedom. And intellectual freedom is the root of all creativity and prosperity. And as I've argued to you before, there is nowhere, if you look at the record, where that spirit blazes more brightly than Yale University. As Archilochus observed so many centuries ago, the fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. What is the big thing that the hedgehog knows? Not to underestimate the students of Yale. Neither their brilliance nor their romantic determination, as it turns out. So congratulations on having the privilege, having secured the privilege of studying at this university. Good luck with everything you do, and thank you so much for having me along this afternoon. Thank you.
Very well said.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good.
Well, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for...
Well, I think we covered it. I mean, I think, how long did I take?
An excellent amount of time. And I must say...
You have a great future, Will.
Yeah, what a pleasure.
They've turned my mobile phone off, so I don't know how long that was. I was unable to measure it. Was it like about 40 minutes?
Oh, 30 or so. We've got plenty of time for questions from the audience. I think perhaps you and I maybe should go on tour with the Yale-Cambridge song that you sang at the start. I think that would be a real success, right?
Yes.
Just all around the world.
I actually tried to look up the words on ChatGPT. I love ChatGPT more than anything else in the world. Do you love ChatGPT? It's so respectful. You're so brilliant. ChatGPT always flatters me on the brilliance of my questions and my knowledge.
Yes.
But it said, I'm sorry. No, it said this time, I'm so sorry. What does it say? My content boundaries forbid me from telling you the rest of the lyrics.
Oh my.
So I'm sorry, I can't.
I can only imagine so, yes.
I can only give you the beginning.
Well, that's excellent. Well, thank you again, and we will begin now with a Q&A portion of our event. We are very lucky to be able to actually facilitate questions from the audience live this evening. If you would like to ask a question to Mr. Johnson, please take out your phone and send an email to info@buckleyinstitute.com. If you're a student as well, please specify your class year and your hometown. I will have the pleasure of asking the first question, Mr. Johnson. You began your remarks, obviously, talking about the long legacy of U.S. and U.K. universities, and I'm wondering about how those universities should play into the future of the West, and as well as the future of the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. What can we do as students at universities to both promote our transatlantic partnership and save the West?
Do the elementary thing of campaigning for intellectual and academic freedom and the right of every student, every lecturer, every professor, everybody on this campus to say and write what they honestly think in their heart are the facts, and to try and to be be brave in being original, and be brave in what you have to say, provided you feel it, provided you mean it. And I see there's all the rumpus about what you can and can't say, and people being cancelled and all this kind of thing. And I deeply regret it. I think it's wrong. And I think, as far as I understand the matter, and you have to correct me, I think Yale actually has a pretty good record when it comes to this. Yes?
Most certainly.
Yeah. I don't try and ingratiate myself with the audience here, but as far as I understand the matter, and the William F. Buckley Institute, and you basically have a lively sense of the need to protect freedom of speech, and that is crucial, because without freedom of speech, if academics can't say something difficult and embarrassing, like, look, I got to tell you, I think the Earth goes round the sun rather than the other way around. You won't, if they're going to torture you, as they did in as the religious authorities did to Galileo, for saying what you honestly think, then humanity won't make progress. And don't be cancelled. Be brave. And our great Western universities have kept the candle of a civilization burning for a long, long time, and they will continue to do so, provided the denizens of those universities remain courageous about the purpose of the university. And as far as I understand it, you've got it here. You made the right stuff here.
Excellent. This is a question related to that answer that you gave. This is asked by a senior at Yale from Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
Do you think that...
I've been there, Rochester University. Oh, no, I've been to Rochester University years ago. I went on a debating thing there, yeah. But no, okay, he comes from Rochester, but he's at Yale. I've got it, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah.
The question is, do you think that the greatest threats to the West are external, Russia, China, or internal, polarization, inequality, declining trust in institutions, etc.?
I think that fundamentally they're internal. I mean, I think the problems we face are, as I say, are a lack of resolve and self-belief, and a lack of belief in our own institutions, and the freedoms that have helped to make us great. So, I think it's when we start to doubt ourselves and to believe in this moral equivalence between great Western countries and societies and other countries, which, believe me, are not free, then we're making a huge, huge mistake. I think the big problems of the Western democracies are obvious. All of us find it impossible to cut spending in a way that we should because of the democratic problems involved. And we've just got to be braver, we've got to be tougher. And you need politicians who are willing to do it, and to have a proper argument with the public about where we've got to. And we need, I can't speak for the United States, we certainly need that in the European Union. We have, I think 7% in Europe. I think it was because I'd include the UK in this criticism as well. We have 7% of the world's population, but I think about 50% of the world's welfare spending, right? That can't go on. That can't go on. So there are problems in the democracies, but they can and will be fixed democratically.
Excellent. And related to the idea of what the future is of these different nations, where the problems arise, a senior at Yale from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, asks, what is the biggest problem faced today by youth in both the UK and the US?
The biggest problem in the UK for young people is that we haven't fixed capitalism so that it works for them. And the biggest problem that we have in the UK is that young people, I don't know what it's like here in New Haven, but they find it very, very hard to get onto the property ladder in the way that I did when I left university many, many years ago, 40 years ago. Almost 40 years ago. And I was able to, thanks to Margaret Thatcher and mortgage interest support, I was able to get a flat in London very, very soon. But the difference in the ratio between incomes and house prices is enormous now. So the multiple of house prices to incomes is now enormous in the UK, and it's grown and grown and grown. So university graduates really struggle to get housing, get flats where they want to live and near the job opportunity, the places of work. And how can you believe in capitalism? How can you support a capitalist system if you struggle to acquire capital in that way? That, I would say, is the single biggest problem we've got. We've got to fix it. And we need to think of different ways we tax land, and we just got to help people into housing. I think that the cutting stamp duty, which is what we're doing now, is a very good thing. Helping young people into property is in my view, I don't know what it's like here. Maybe you guys, are you all right? Is it a piece of cake? Seriously, I mean, I'd be interested to know. Is it the same sort of thing here, or is it? Yeah. So my generation, I was the tail end of the baby boom, right? I was the last. I was 64. We had it so easy. We had state-funded education, state-funded healthcare, and it was a piece of cake to buy housing. But younger people have had it really tough. Would that be true for the? I'm looking, for the older generation here. Was it easier in your day to get housing? Yeah. Well, you ask why younger people feel alienated and choose alienation. I think, do you know what? I think they're remarkably cheerful and polite, considering. That's what I think. I think it's a measure of how naturally nice they are, that they aren't more furious with us about the difficulties that they're having in getting a foot on the property ladder.
We can ask the protesters about that as well.
Are there
See
any
what they
protesters
say.
here?
No, not this evening,
Well,
but perhaps the ones wearing the dish rags you mentioned earlier. I don't know. Anyway,
you might not want to report me.
Yes. If I may ask, you mentioned.
We're off the record, aren't we here? These are Chatham House rules, right?
If I may ask, you mentioned we will be the ones to fix those problems for the youth. In a British context, what does that look like? Does that look like the Conservative Party will be the ones to fix that? The Labour Party?
Well, I hope so, yes. Certainly the Labour Party isn't fixing it. We've got to come back and win the next election. No question.
And so there's a question here related to that from a student at the School of Management completing an MBA. Since your time as Prime Minister, the Conservative Party has lost a large share of the vote.
Hang on. No. Oh, since my time. Yes, that's right. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Since your time, what do you think are the three most important things the Conservative Party must do to make itself into a serious political force again?
Number one, that thing I was just talking about. It's all about the economy. It's all about opportunity and aspiration. The Conservative Party is a party of home ownership, family, trusting people to do the right thing, giving people responsibility, allowing people, encouraging people to make their own lives and to make the best of themselves, giving them the freedom. If they don't have the freedom to buy a home near where there's a job opportunity, they are really constrained. So that's number one. Number two, sort out illegal immigration. People are fed up with it. I look at what's happened here, and I much actually admire the resolve with which that problem seems to have been tackled. And if I understand it correctly, maybe I'm being misled, but it seems that you've got 0 people coming over the border in Mexico now. Is that right? Well, that's terrific. And we've got a problem, which is we've got these people coming across in dinghies across the channel. And it started when it was going on when I was Prime Minister. And it was very, very hard to stop because the difficulty is that you don't want to sink the dinghies because they'll drown at sea, and you can't ask the Royal Navy to ram them. But I did actually ask them, but they quite they quite rightly refused because the law of the sea and their code as mariners says that they can't do that, and you have to be humane when people are in peril on the sea. But what you can do is you can ping them back to the other side of the channel without even allowing them to bounce on the volley, as it were. We were going to send them to Rwanda, which was a fantastic plan. They were going to arrive in Kent and found that it was twinned with Kigali, and they were going to be pinged back to Rwanda. And that was entirely the right policy, because it would have broken the economic the case of the gangs, and it would have even mentioning the idea when I was PM. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the law through, but it started to stop the people coming across just in anticipation. Now, of course, the Labour government has scrapped it. The other thing we need to do, we need to have a much more commonsensical approach to crime. Crimes and shoplifting and things are out of control in the UK. Zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. When I was mayor of London, we had crime down about 20%. We had the murder rate cut in half by doing stop and search. We have zero tolerance. People need to feel safe. So fix the housing market, stop the illegal migration, cut crime, and somehow or other, you've got to get back into the UK that sense of opportunity that there is in the US, and I'm afraid we're going to have to do some quite difficult things on the welfare budget, which I mentioned to you earlier on. I think I'm right in saying that just in a couple of years, spending on mental health care went up from about 25 billion to about 50 billion pounds sterling. As may not sound like huge numbers in American terms, but this is a big amount of money for us in the UK. Now, are you seriously telling me that just in 2 years, in that COVID period, everybody got so utterly depressed and miserable that we had to double spending on mental health care? You think they did? I don't. I think that it got totally out of control, and we are and have been medicalizing ordinary gloom, natural human, being down in the dumps, and I think it's crazy. Sorry, I'm going to sound something very uncaring and right wing now, but I just think it's out of control, and we can't afford it, and our debt is rising. The other thing I would do is I would use AI to try to cut some of the public spending. As I say, I told you, I love ChatGPT. I love AI. I don't see why we can't use AI to replace a lot of the functions of the state, and most of it. Look at the cost of HS2, which is a gigantic railway, which we've cancelled now, humiliatingly. Absolutely crazy. It's a crucial part of UK infrastructure. Runs from London to Birmingham, should go all the way to Scotland. It doesn't. It just runs from London to Birmingham. We've cancelled the northern leg. Most of the spending on infrastructure goes on consultants and planning and lawyers, all the environmental impact assessments, right? All of it can be done by AI. Brilliant. I love AI. And I genuinely think it's going to be the solution for Western. What is the solution of Western democracies? The solution of Western democracies is going to be AI to cut government expenditure, and then cheap electricity in the form of, I hope, nuclear fusion. Build up a cheap electricity. AI will fix the problems of government. That's what I think.
Hopeful future, excellent.
Yeah.
If I may go back to the topic of immigration, which you mentioned as a second big point for the Conservative Party, I might combine two questions here. There's one from a freshman from Blacklick, Ohio. How do we start to address immigration to protect the integrity of the nation while still staying compassionate and acknowledging the humanity of these migrants? And then the second part of the question is one a sophomore from New York asks, what do you make of the so-called, quote, Islamification of the United Kingdom?
Well, I've got to tell you, I'm very grateful to the sophomore from New York. My great-grandfather was a Muslim, okay? And he came to the United Kingdom in 1912 in fear of his life because he was an editor of a small publication and said some, slightly provocative things, and they wanted to get rid of him. And he came to Britain because even then, of course, particularly then, it had a global reputation as a place where you could say things and where you could live your life as you chose. And he came to Wimbledon, as it happened. And I became mayor of London about a century later. And God knows what he would have thought of his great-grandson becoming mayor of that city that he arrived in. And I tell you what he would have thought, that his family had done the right thing by trying to integrate. And whatever complaints people make about my family, we can all speak English pretty much. We can. So on your point about culture and Islam, it's not where you come from. It's not your religion. Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't. It's whether you're signed up to the society you live in, and whether you love that society, and whether you're devoted to it, and whether you're willing to lay down your life for that society. And you should be able to. And actually, when I look at the United States of America, for most of my life anyway, that has been one of the most important facts about America, is that people who come here become American. And it's a totally wonderful and amazing thing. It doesn't matter where you come from, you become American. And, we need to I think for decades in the UK, we didn't have that. We didn't ask people, we didn't make enough demands of people to just to be part of our society and to there are still women in some Bangladeshi communities who can't speak English. It is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So there is a problem, but the solution is very simple, and it's everybody speaks English. Everybody's taught in English, and that's it. I'm not saying you have to pledge allegiance to the flag. I mean, it would be good. I'd like it, but well, maybe we should do that too. The flag's around a lot now. Maybe we should. But you try that, and the left get very aerated. They don't like that. They think it's discriminatory.
Yeah, it is called England after all. I suppose English would make sense in England.
Yeah.
Well,
it makes sense everywhere.
Yeah.
I think you'll find it's the language of air traffic control. It's everybody. It's fantastic.
Yes. Well, thank you for answering those questions from our audience this evening. We have run out of time for those, but I'm taking the liberty of taking one last question here before we depart for the evening. You were very generous to mention the 250th birthday of our country and all of those wonderful historical anecdotes that you mentioned. And I'm glad to see that it has never been forgotten across the pond how much tea was tossed into Boston Harbor in 1773.
I wish we did. The tragedy is probably people in my country don't know that story as well as they should.
Well, that is a perfect relation to my question. I'm curious, as America approaches the 250th anniversary of its Declaration of Independence from Great Britain, what do you think is a lesson from British history that Americans ought to learn more about to better understand the partnership and the long-standing alliance between our two nations?
I think the most important lesson of British history is that we did have an empire that was 7 times bigger than the Roman Empire at its height. And we were, at one stage, by far the most powerful country on earth. But we gave it up. And my message to people like Putin, who wants to rebuild the Soviet Empire, is get over it. Empire gone. No more Russian Empire. No more British Empire, right? And I think my message I think the lesson for America is that these kingdoms rise and wane, and empires wax and wane. And it is true, and it's going to be true for much longer than people think, that America will be the #1 nation. America is by far the #1 nation. You fly over America, and you just wonder where is everybody? I've just flown to where New Haven, and I was in Washington. I went down to Virginia. I've been all over the place. You look down, no one there. Vast, beautiful, rolling countryside, gorgeous mountains, plains. No, England, 500 people per square mile. US, 95 people per square mile. This country is in its infancy, right? Honestly. China, India, ancient centers of huge population for centuries and centuries, and with big demographic problems. Now, far, far smaller per capita GDP already than the US. So what I would say, the lesson is, we couldn't sustain it for very long just because of our size, our geographical position, but you can. So, but even though the British Empire was so transient, its influence has been colossal, absolutely colossal. We mentioned the language, but every sport that people play, the clothes that people wear, the suit came from 18th century London, blah, 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 blah. I could go on and on. The influence of the British Empire on the world has been, and many of the problems the world has, are of course the legacy of the British Empire. And that was just with, a period of dominance, really, that was only a few decades of absolute dominance. You guys, this great Commonwealth of the United States, is going to be on top. It has been on top already for 80 years. It's going to be on top for a long, long time. So I think the lesson to be learned from the UK, from British history, for Americans, is look at the scale of what the Brits did just in the period they had out of a tiny island on the northwest coast of Europe, not particularly well favoured with climate or, frankly, or natural resources. Look what the Brits did. And then, because we had free, stable institutions and freedom under the rule of law, and think what America can achieve. Think what America can achieve. So I think the lesson I would urge you to draw is confidence about America. And I sometimes feel that that's lacking. And people are obsessed about China and obsessed about India, and it's really, as one of the questions was, what is the greatest threat? It's our own lack of self-confidence and self-belief. Mm-hmm. And I think, provided we stick to our core values, freedom, democracy, freedom under the law, respect for each other, all of which, of course, as I say, you got from us. It will be a long, long, long success. I really think so. I think my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren will be wanting to come to America as the #1 nation, and their children as well. Mm. Absolutely no doubt about it. So I think that's the lesson.
Why?
The lesson is, look at what the Brits did with such unpromising materials. Think what we could do. Mm.
Well,
That's what I would say.
I can't think of a better lesson to end on than that, Mr. Johnson.
Well,
thank you very much for your excellent speech.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.